Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
Okay, yes, I recall the email. You want to do a relatively amateur sound studio sort of barrier.
Well, I guess you could call it that, yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually wanting to make a pretty good one.
Well, when I say amateur, I mean you're not the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. I've been involved in STC projects and have seen the drawings when, the CSO, is doing it where they're spending $1 million on engineering. So I don't mean it won't be exceptional. It's just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the, materials picked out, and you sent me the Reese catalog, so I know that there's probably some very comparable parts in there that I could substitute. So I've kind of got that part figured out as far as the piece parts that I would need to order. But I think you had suggested I call you to talk about the door construction, the jamb, and all that. So.
Part of your email was you were considering getting away from the acoustical attenuation, equipment. I have actual experience in building wood frames, and just wanted to lend any sort of expertise I might have in that regard to how you would approach building a wood frame.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, that's great. I haven't actually done it before, so I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I think that because I'm not, especially because I'm not planning on boring out and having a traditional doorknob and deadbolt and all that, that it's really just a matter of getting the hinges mortised correctly, which, I think I could do, and then just getting everything squared up and true. There may be more to it than that, but
how are you going to join the header and the jambs?
So what I was planning on doing is using like a fairly thick hardwood, like a 1 1/4. So pretty thick. I wasn't sure if I could just screw them together since it's so thick, or if I would need to use some kind of finger joint or a rabbet, or a more advanced joinery,
Yeah, I mean that's what we would do is we would mortise the top of the jambs so that you would have the ability to put the header together at that point. You're gonna cut the length of all your boards to accommodate that sort of mortise joinery that you'd have at the top area, and that's just typical, construction. If you tore apart a wood frame in your house, that's how it's going to be put together.
Right.
So you'd need a router to do that, but you're going to need a router to mortise the hinges unless you're going to do that just with a hammer and chisel.
No, I have one.
Okay, and you're going to do a single rabbet frame?
Well, I wasn't gonna. So my understanding is that the what's it called? That the jam seal has that it has the stop built into it. So I guess I would consider that to be the rabbet, right? It would just be the jam would just be a solid or a straight piece of wood. And sorry, I don't have all the terminology right, but the 770 seal is actually the stop and the seal. So it sort of acts like that rabbet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and that's indeed how the material is shown. Generally we don't see doors installed as cased opening frames when they're STC, but it would be a piece of 5/4 lumber with a piece of 4/4 lumber, everything planed down, turned into a single rabbet or a double rabbet, with the material applied to what we'd call the soffit of the stop. But gosh, doing it as a cased opening frame will sure, make less complicated the amount of, wood that you have to have and cut.
Well, and it seems like because it's really going to be not like a 500-pound door, it's going to be more in the range of 100 pounds. I think that stop would hold pretty well, make it pretty solid, just using that seal. And if I caulk it in there, it should be airtight as well.
Yeah, if I was going to build it, I would definitely make this out of a single rabbet frame. I would add wood stops to it. I would want to stop any leakage that would occur from the face of the jamb and the header to the underside of the 770, the 0770. They had clearly got an STC 52 without it, based on their published data.
Right.
But just my opinion is I would put stops over it and then apply the material to that, because I would kerf my stops and I would toss into that additional weather stripping in there, some small kerfed material that would go in there as well. So I would augment the bronze V cushion, the 770 header and jambs, and then the 367, the 0367 automatic door bottom.
Okay.
But yeah, but it passed the test, or at least obtain that STC rating. So what is your door construction going to be? You mentioned a solid core door with MDF applied?
That was the original plan, but I took a look at my walls again. So I'm going to have two doors eventually, right? It's going to be an inner wall and an outer wall, completely separated. And so the outer wall, when I calculated the weight on that, I mean, the equivalent, size of that wall, 36 by 80, it weighs about 60 pounds. So the solid core door that I've finally got a hold of sourced, it weighs 100. So I'm thinking that just by itself is plenty, because it's a little heavier than the wall would be if there was just a solid wall there. For the inner wall, it's going to weigh a little bit more, and I might supplement it with MDF, but I'm not sure yet. I'm mainly working on the outer door right now.
And your calculation on STC integrity is based on mass, just based on the weight of the material.
Yeah, really it is, and because it's a double room system, so it's going to be that mass air mass thing between the two rooms. That's really where I'm expecting to get the true bang for the buck in terms of like low frequency, like the lower end attenuation.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. Electric bass is what I studied, and it's really best when the part of my practice was just, putting on a Booker T and the MG song and just playing. It's best to do that when no one's at home. So you're going to have, in essence, a pair of communicating doors like you'd see in a hotel.
Right.
Yeah, got it.
So it's going to be more expensive because that's two sets of seals, but it's also like not a single point of failure. So I don't need like one single perfect, super heavy door, which I think is helpful. Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, heavy doors are. Yeah, they're. I have to look it up. If it's a 3068 inch and 3/4 solid core typical particle board, it might be about 6 pounds per square foot. I'd have to look at the chart on that. But that's going to be fairly close to what it is.
Yeah, I think that's what they said. It's a birch solid core. It might actually have MDF in the middle, but if it weighs 101 pounds or whatever they said, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit more than the wall is probably about. I think it was about 2.5 pounds per square foot. It's like 2 layers of drywall.
Sure.
So
are the walls already built?
The inner wall is not even started, but the outer wall is I'm working on that right now, and I haven't completely roughed in the frame yet either. So that's partly why I wanted to do this, so I can make sure I have the dimensions exactly right, and then I'll rough it in, because I don't have like the header built, or the gap is kind of like a rough opening right now. I need to make sure I get that just right. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah. I do know that the CSO employed lots of cork, and I have personally used it building a ceiling where I would put down a layer of drywall, then a layer of cork, and then drywall on top of it. And of course, it's difficult to really know in an amateur sense how effective it was, but I can tell you that when I pulled all that material out when we were moving, it was then proven to me how outrageously effective my amateur attempts were because of how ridiculously loud the entire space became. So, and then of course that egg crate material, and you can buy it on, your eBays of the world, because it's inexpensive, and the thickness, and while it's just really, really not STC rated at all, I can attest to the fact that it at least is better than nothing by far. So you might even line that on the inside of on the inside face of your drywall, between your studs. And that stuff's pretty cheap. Cork is not cheap, but you'd buy it in a roll, and it's thin and it goes on. Anyway, it does sound like you've thought about that stuff for sure.
Well, yeah, and I've actually got insulation already. I mean, this is a wall that was already built that I'm sort of tearing open and then redoing. So it's got pink insulation in it, so that's going to be my damper in between the walls. And then inside the room, the inner room, there's going to be more insulation, and then definitely will be like sound treatment as well. That'll be like the last, that's down the road as far as the design goes.
Yeah.
So that'll be definitely taken into consideration.
Yeah, so in terms of the hardware itself, you would absolutely want, I think, the factory to miter the header and the two jams. Obviously, it's their goal to miter it, at a 45-degree angle, and your frame needs to be that as well. So,
right.
you're going to want to have that when you install it. In terms of mortising the hinges, I have mortised tens of thousands of doors, no exaggeration. A router is really great, but at the same time, how much money do you want to spend on a template? You can do it with a hammer and chisel. It's just going to take longer, and so be mindful of that. You'll want to route your jam in the flat if you make a stop before you apply your stop. Porter Cable does a good job at making some templates that I have run thousands of doors through a single template without any fatigue at all. And I think they even might make some more disposable situations, because that needs to be positioned correctly, meaning if it's an 1 3/4 thick door, you're going to have 1/4 inch of your door thickness not mortised. So 1.5 inches of your door is going to be mortised, and then you just need to figure out what will the inset of the door be in relationship to the face of the frame on the pull side. So you'll have to mortise your frame accordingly so that you have either a 3/32 inset or no inset. It's not going to matter in your application at all, because you're making a door and frame.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking it would just be flush and and I need to remeasure those hinges, but I'm thinking that because I got the really big beefy hinges because I just got a really good deal on them, so that's the Z9500, and those might even be 1 3/4 inch wide, but I have to double check. I know they're pretty deep. So it might be like a fully mortise out the door, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're talking a Z950?
Well, no, it's actually the 9500. It's one better than that.
Okay, so yeah, that's epic.
I know it's way overkill. I got them for like something like 85% off the normal price, so I couldn't really turn it down.
What'd you pay for them?
I think they were, what did I say? Like $70 a piece or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's a great price. I mean, honestly, you might not want to use those hinges on this door and save them for,
really?
No, of course you're going to use them, but that's that hinge, when they say it's rated for 900 pounds, yeah, I mean, man, oh man, that's one hell of a hinge. How many do you have?
I got 8, so I'm actually going to use 4 on each door, and that I know I don't need 4, but the 4 would be more to keep it from bending or anything. Just keep it perfectly straight. I mean, 2 would probably be enough to hold it, but 4 to keep it straight.
Yeah, so 5, 10, and equal. 5, 10, and equal. Top of the door to the top of the first hinge, 5 inch. Bottom of the door to the bottom of the bottom hinge, 10 inch, and then the equal amount. That's an industry standard. If you were like, hey, where am I going to stick these? 5, 10, and equal is a common common size.
So 5 from the top, 5 from the bottom, and then split the difference. Is that?
No, it's 5 from the top, and then 5, 10, and equal. So 5 from the top. 10 is 10. The bottom to the bottom. And then you just you take your math, your center lines, divide that by 3, then you'll have your 2 hinge locations.
Gotcha.
It's no hard and fast rule. That's just tossing it out there, industry standard. One hell of a hinge. That hinge is a 1/4 inch thick.
Right.
And it's 5 inch tall. Which means, and that's really where its weight rating is going to come in because of that height. But that's a 4.5 inch wide hinge, so it's appropriate for 1 3/4 inches. That's the bottom line.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
What are you going to do to latch your doors?
That's something I'm not sure about. I was thinking either, one thought would be, and I don't know how I would incorporate this with the 770, but to get like a magnetic seal, like a refrigerator, and then it would just sort of keep itself closed. But the other thought would be like an electromagnetic kind of a lock, if you will, that kind of holds it closed, which I've seen those in commercial buildings. I don't know how much those run, but I do need to lock this one. The inner door won't need to be locked, but this one does.
Okay, I happen to have experience with electrified hardware. The downside of an electromagnetic lock is inherently they're fail-safe. So all I have to do is get in is to turn your fuse off.
Well, it can be have a little battery backup, right? Just like an alarm system could.
True. Yeah, you can put batteries in parallel or in series depending on what you want to accomplish, either amperage or amp hours. The question is, how many batteries will you need to get a 3-day weekend? So it's going to look like the trunk of a Tesla.
Well, I installed an alarm system at one point, and it has like looks like a tiny little car battery. It's a 12 volt, and I think that thing was probably good for, I want to say at least a couple days of no power and holding your whole alarm system together. So I would think that with just one electromagnetic latch, it would probably be one of those batteries would probably work for a couple of days, I would think. And this isn't like downtown Las Vegas. It's not like it has to be bulletproof. It's just to keep people out, So even if they cut the power, they'd have to wait a couple of days, and I doubt that would ever happen.
So, and it won't. You just want to check your amperage and calculate that out, because even a small electromagnet is going to pull a lot more. It's going to have a lot more requirement for amperage over time than an alarm system would. So you're just going to do the math on that, and you'll be able to, do. If you buy a magnet for me, I'll let you know, what I think on that. I've taken classes on that stuff. But the point of the matter is, a battery's going to work. It's just a question of how long and how many. So the only issue with that is you'll need some equipment to actually tell it to unlock. You'll need a switch. The downside of it is the potential, and this is I only say it because it's in established building code. If your push button switch fails and you have no way to turn the power off, you're trapped in the room. So think about, what's my safety? How am I getting out if I need to get out? And I have a hardware failure. So anyway,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you could defeat the turn off the power and the battery from inside the room or something like that, so then it does completely power down. You
need to be able to get out, and you need to make provisions such is the bottom line. And obviously the same sort of thought to get back, how are you going to electrify the opening when you when you push the door closed when you want to exit, you could accomplish that with a door position switch. So every time you close that door, bam, it's locked until you open the circuit on the inside or open the circuit on the outside. You could have a key switch on the outside, so you need a key to get in to open that circuit. That would be kind of cool. A million ways to go.
Push button or something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, or a keypad. Yes, sir. But in terms of your gasketing, following what the manufacturers put together is really, no reason to deviate from that. What's nice about that Zero stuff is it's, the ability to adjust to the projection. So you'll be able to tailor that if you got a little giddy up in your door somewhere.
That's what I like. That's one of the main reasons I like that, and the fact that it's using the neoprene, which I guess makes one of the better seals.
So there's open cell and closed cell. Yeah, STC rated will be open cell, so it's literally full of air pockets. Closed cell would be what you'd want if you're going to put a hose on a door, keep the water out. But yeah, that would be sponge type neoprene.
Yeah. And like I said, I was thinking like with like the 770, if I put a little bead of caulk along there before I install it, and then when I do install it, it should seal that very, very tightly against the wood and make it airtight. You know what I mean, between the wood and the metal.
Couldn't agree more, because I think between the screw points, you'll have an imperceptible amount of bellying between the material. Ever so imperceptible. Ever so, 100,000ths of an inch. So yeah, I would definitely run a bead down there, too. In fact, because the stuff's so wide, get something in there.
So I think I did actually send an email to it's not Zero anymore. It's that new company, Legion or whatever.
No, it's still Zero. They're just owned by Legion.
Oh, well, okay. But yeah, that's like their domain. But I was under the impression that you would want to, when you miter that corner like that, you'd still want to like glue that rubber together. Did you really? And I think you even said you didn't need to do that. Does it just kind of push together and seal itself, or what?
Yeah, physical contact. I've never heard of trying to make any sort of permanent bond between the neoprene itself. I've never heard of that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess as long as it's nicely mated together, then it should be pretty airtight. Then sounds like.
Yeah, that's the point. Which is a reason why, you might not have the factory miter the material so that you can take over complete control over how that's being done. You might want it square. You might want to order it 4 inches longer, so that you can get a miter on it, so that you can control. You would cut your you're going to pull your neoprene back, make your miter, then pull your neoprene back through so it's hanging out 4 inch, and then you can trim it with your X-Acto blade as best as possible. That's what I would do.
Well, is that how it would be done if you guys mitered it? Would you do it that way, where you pull the rubber in and then leave some hanging out?
No, every time I see it come from the factory, it's the neoprene's mitered. It'll hang long on the bottom, so you can tug it. It'll hang long a little bit.
I see.
But they're going to cut through that neoprene.
Okay. Well, would an average, your typical kind of chop saw, maybe with maybe you want like a metal blade, be enough to cut that neatly? If I was going to do it.
Yeah, you're going to want a carbide, just like what you'd use for cutting crown. All that material is going to be aluminum, with the exception of the screws, the adjusting screws. You'll need to stay well away from those.
Sure.
But you got a miter box saw. Carbide is what you want.
Okay. Well, and then one other question too on the size is I think it was the Legion guy who recommended that with those. Not only with the cam hinges, but also the 119 little leaf things around the perimeter, that you'd want probably about the leaf cushion, I think. So you'd probably want about 3/16 all around the door, between the door and the jamb. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it does. Because that if you were to crush the V cushion bronze down, you're not going to crush it down to below 1/8 of an inch. So yeah, I would leave. A standard margin is 1/8 of an inch. You're going to want to be marginally heavy on that.
Okay. And then also, it sounds like I would want to, like we were talking about the bevel, probably bevel not only the sides of the door but the top too. You think just a little bit?
I would suggest beveling the sides certainly, but in terms of the top, I don't see an advantage necessarily of beveling the top because of how the door pivots. You want to have a little bit of relief on the back side of the door so that when the door gets from the 0 degree to like the 3 degree open position, you have, as you're hitting the outside corner of the door, you're not aggressively further compressing your V cushion. So I would relieve that back is what I would do, and by putting a 3 degree bevel on it.
Okay. Well, and the reason why I was thinking about the top is because of the cam lift. As soon as you open it, it starts to raise just slightly, and I think that it's very, very slightly, so it may not matter if there's no bevel up there. But that's why I'd wondered if it would be helpful to bevel the top.
Yeah, I don't think you're. I don't think you would need to accommodate that on the top. You're going to leave. By the time that door gets basically the 1 3/4 thick portion clear of the frame, I don't think your vertical lift has gone very much at all, because that door is just being nudged open.
Right. Makes sense.
I don't see a detriment to bevel it. But I'm not convinced that it would be necessary at all.
Okay. Well, so what I'm thinking I should do is I should go ahead and get the door so that I can make sure that I have the exact measurements, because what I'm going to have to do is take that door, get the exact measurements, add 3/16 to both sides, and then that's going to be the width of jamb I want. So it might be 36, but it might be 36 and 3/16 or some slightly more than 36, because I want that to be pretty accurate. Does that make sense?
It does. I would work from your fixed dimension. If you can get a door, your door is probably going to be 36 inch full and square, and then from that you're going to bevel it down. You could probably make that door 35 and 7/8, and then just build your jamb bigger. Something's got to be built around something else. Right.
I guess I figured that would be I would start with the door and wouldn't modify it. Just get what they send me, because they're gonna. I think that the shop will bevel it for me, but I have to double check on that.
Oh, definitely let them do that. I mean, there's no simple way to do that in the field by hand. It's another tool you're going to have to buy.
Yeah, right. So that's why I figure I'll wait, because I might not necessarily want exactly 36 inches on that jamb. It might be 36 and a little bit of change. So I'll make sure I get that figured out first.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that might be about it. I know I'm going to need a stop, like a stop. Is that what it's called? The thing that keeps you from slamming the door. Sorry.
Door closer?
Closer. Yeah, that's what.
Okay, sure.
I need one of those, for sure.
Are you recording in this room?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Will people be walking in while you're recording?
No, most likely not. I mean, that's not the intention. It's going to be a single room, though. It's not going to have broken up into control room, et cetera. So it's going to be like a single all-purpose room. Mm-hmm. So it'll be like, when the light goes on, the doors will be closed and nobody will come in and out.
Oh, okay. And the reason I ask is because the automatic door bottom, everything makes sound, especially the automatic door bottom when the doors are opened. You'll hear that drop bar will come back up and won't clank because of the construction of the Zero product. It's very muffled, but it does create acoustical energy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not planning on using the door while it's while I'm recording, so that's no problem. I did see in the literature that you can take the door bottom and mortise it into the door, but my opinion or thought would be you wouldn't want to do that because you're going to take mass away from the door. Would you just want to do an outside mount? Like that picture shows?
Yeah, a surface mount. I would really be tempted to, the 2-inch or 2.5-inch tall portion of that. The question becomes, if you surface mount it, you've got to cut that between your stops.
Right.
That's going to be an inherent weak point.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought that.
Yeah. Now, in your mind's eye, if you mortise it flush and run it the entire width of the door, when the door goes into the closed position, now your stops are making full contact with the face of the door, and in this case, the face of the unit as well. And the neoprene of your 367 door bottom, you're going to run that long so it makes contact with the jamb.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
it does solve a problem. In the minutia world, it gives you a little better coverage, and I don't really think if you need to be concerned about your loss in mass for the 7/8 thickness of the unit or whatever it is, you might need to be thinking about stuff that's military grade. So
yeah.
I don't know that I would go so far as to worry about that loss in mass on for that portion of the door.
Okay.
You
well,
could even,
the thing has the closer or the bottom has mass as well, so it's metal. So I mean, it's going to replace some of that wood.
You could even mortise it deep and then mortise it deeper and taller and line it with some cork. I've not, I don't recall. I built my thing a long time ago, and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra job was a long time ago, but a lot of cork was employed. So you might just get a little nutty with that and, come up with some sort of sound deadening material underneath your prep. So that might help.
Let me ask you this, because I'm looking at this drawing right now, that zero drawing that shows all this put together, and the way it appears is that when it's on an outside mount and the door is closed, then the seal drops down onto the top of the threshold. So if you were to mortise that into the door, where would that seal be dropping onto? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. It's obviously going to be coming down, onto the top of the threshold itself.
Okay, down to that kind of lower step of the threshold, not the upper step, which is where the outside mount shows it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Then you'll have a real tight seal up there, and if you wanted to get super crazy, you could even install one of those at the header as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Well, there's even, it just, how deep is the rabbit hole on this stuff?
Right, and I'm believe it or not, I'm actually trying to keep things fairly simple because I know that it can go much more than that. I'm not going to put a window in the door or there's a lot further you can go. I know. Just one more question, I'll let you go. I think I've got most of the bases covered, but I've seen like pre-hung doors where the threshold on the bottom is like kind of rabbited, I guess, into the jamb. Would I need to do that, or would the jamb just come all the way down to the floor and then the threshold just fits perfectly into that gap? So
you'll see exterior door construction where your application without a stop, you're gonna put your threshold between your jambs. The only time that you see it mitered, so to speak, or it connected at the bottom is when the stops are brought down. They're cut short and sit on top of the threshold, and the threshold runs long and actually is a structural member that the jambs are attached to from the bottom of the threshold.
Right. That's what I was wondering if I needed to do something like that.
No. No, I mean the coping that you would have to do at the bottom of your jamb around the profile of the threshold. I would say that Yeah, and I would say you'd want your wood to go down to subfloor or whatever it's going down to.
Okay. That's kind of what I was hoping. I could just caulk those seams and everything so that it stays tight and airtight. So.
Yeah. Is there a caulk
Okay.
that's intended for STC applications? Is there such a product on the market? I don't even think I've ever even thought of it.
Yeah, it's an acoustical caulk. It's I think it's OC 175, and it stays a little bit. It doesn't harden completely.
Yeah.
And I've used a few cases that already in the walls to where the drywall fits in. You're supposed to caulk that boundary as well as seal up all of the plates and just about everything you can seal in the framing. So that's what I've been using.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's not ridiculously expensive. It's not like green glue or something. It's it's not just made for crazy people who are doing soundproofing. So.
Well, what would be really helpful is if it's not too late, document your steps along the way, toss it out on a blog, because you know why? There's a lot of people trying to do what you want to do because their wife's upstairs and all she wants to do is watch television, and all you want to do is practice your bass. So.
Right. I am kind of doing that on a forum. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's not a lot of information out there, and that's the bottom line. There is if you want to spend $1 million, but not otherwise. Amateur stuff is the work that you're doing is going to edify somebody else in the future if you put that out there, and it's worthwhile. You need to learn from anything that you didn't go exactly right too. I love it.
Yeah, I did. I am doing that to some degree. There's a couple of forums that have some useful information, and it's good because there's a lot of really bad information out there too, as I'm sure you know.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? People using tongue and groove, and that's how they did it. Nope.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate the help. I think I'm going to go ahead and see about procuring the door, and then I'll put a list together and send you an email, and then maybe you can help me with the closer, and then we could figure out the whatever keeps it closed, the lock or whatever it is that we go with.
Yeah, so be mindful you'll pierce holes when you attach the closer. So you might want to, pre-drill your holes, stuff them with acoustic caulk, and then put your screws in, or whatever. Yeah, maybe put a gasket of something open cell neoprene from the body on the face of the door. You see where I'm going with this. I've even gone so far as to deaden the amount of vibration from my overhead door operator in my garage and just isolate all the parts with neoprene. So isolation was the moral of the story of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra project. Isolation. So
they're probably trying to keep noise out, right? The city noise out of their space, right?
Absolutely, is what they're trying to do. Plus, you go to Carnegie Hall or places like this, they don't have one stage; they've got 5. Okay, so the ceilings, the floors, the stories, the 1, 2, 3 stories, all of that is isolated from each other. Nothing touches anything else without it being broken up into, like you'd have in a thermal application. You have a thermal break threshold where there's aluminum, a rigid piece of rigid plastic, and then another piece of aluminum so the cold can't transfer. Same concept with acoustics. But it's worth it is the bottom line. Everything you're doing is worth it.
Well, that's actually I'm not really worried about getting sound bugging people. I live out in the country, and this is a standalone building, but it's the outside noise coming in that I'm trying to stop too. So there's a lot of low frequency stuff out there, airplanes, and we get a lot of. I live in the country, so we've got gunfire and things like that. That's what I'm really trying to keep out.
And it's hard to hear the low frequencies, or it is for me, until you hear it on a recording. Is what I've encountered, and I'm no expert. I've just humbled myself with the study of music. But yeah, it can be maddening, and it can become a bit of an obsession. But All
right. Well, hopefully this is enough. I know I'm not going to get 100% of it out, but I'm going to hopefully get enough of it that it doesn't drive me nuts. That's really the goal.
Yeah.
So we won't know till it's done. That's the downside.
Yeah. Hopefully you
But
sit in the
we'll see.
room and it's so quiet that you start to get a little weirded out on yourself. I've gone in military grade sound attenuation rooms, and it's like, you start hearing voices because there's no sound. There's nothing happening. It's your imagination. Yeah, so cool.
Yep.
Well, my name is Rich. I'd love to, be a part of the conversation if I can be of any benefit. I don't think I really can be, but if I can, let me know.
It's been helpful, yeah. Yeah, okay. I'll let you know here when I'm getting close to putting the parts list together. So.
Right on, sir. I stand by. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program.